Hey there, in this video I'm going to show you how I built out a website in about an hour and a half-ish on Squarespace. From blank slate to a finished website, and it's actually up, so you can check it out at levelupandthrive.com. It's a kind of a podcast that we're trying to get off the ground, interviewing minority business owners. And yeah, so it's going to be really cool. So in this video, I'm going to show you blank slate to a finished Squarespace website. The only things that you will not see are me inputting my account to actually pay for the hosting, and forwarding the domain from Bluehost over to this site. Everything else you get to see, and I will walk you through what exactly I'm doing. It is a pretty fast process, so if you have any questions, please put them in the comments below. There's also a snippet of code that I use, so put that in the comments below if you want that snippet. It's really simple. You can probably Google it, but if you want it, I can give it to you. And then, yeah, that's basically it. Make sure that you visit roblessdesigns.com for any freebies. We do have a website planning course, which I would highly recommend doing before you jump into any website build. With this website, I already had the basic idea of what was going to go in it. I had the content, I had some images, it's very simple branding, but I had a very simple brand logo and a color. So I had those elements, which made it go by so much faster. So it only took about an hour and a half. Obviously it'll be sped up in this video, but let me know if you have any questions on that. But roblessdesigns.com, you can get a website planning guide. There's also a website checklist, especially for Squarespace users and do-it-yourselfers. And if you are interested, I do have the website Empire Method course, which actually will take you through a complete blank slate. Let's say you have no content, no logo, and no website, and it takes you from that stage, that phase of your business, all the way to a finished Squarespace website, both e-commerce, service-based, and so on. And I also add some SEO items. So I hope that you enjoyed this video, and let me know in the comments if you have any questions. So right now I'm just setting up the site, and typically I just put in the site title and then skip the whole intro, and then I will go in and delete any content that I don't actually need, so any pages, and then double checking those demo pages, making sure that the URL slugs are correct and that I do want to keep them, so you can see that there. And then I double check the pages with the content that's in them, just to see if I really want that layout or not. This is a pretty simple site, so not a lot of layout strategy went into it, not like a regular business website, but it still needed a blog page, and I named it episodes at first, and then I created the blog page, and I created some fake links. And that is so in case I needed them later, but I wanted to visualize them on the navigation, making sure I knew exactly what it would look like, and the organization of the navigation. From there, I went into the elements for the navigation, got rid of that button, and then hit save a few times. And then from there, you can see that I'm just kind of going through the entire site and looking at the content that's there. And now I'm back in the header. I'm actually looking for all of the information for the branding. So basically I'm looking for the logo, the colors, and everything I have on file on my other screen. I drag and drop the logo so I can start to visualize what that looks like, editing the height, making sure that it's not so overpowering, and removing some of that vertical padding. The reason I did this is because your people already know where they're at. They clicked on something to get to your site. Your logo is not the most important thing. If you look at any high-end e-commerce or other websites, their logos are not number one thing that you see. You see their content and their hero section. So right now I'm just editing a few of the header settings and checking mobile. Always make sure to check mobile for your settings, and then hitting save a few times. So from here, I'm looking over the content again, and then if you see my arrow going off to one side, I am actually in the colors area and then popping into my other screen to get the color codes. As you can see, I couldn't actually find the color codes that I was going to use, so I took that logo variation and I snagged the color code off there. There are some free uploading tools on the browser that you could utilize and search for to get color codes off of images as well. And I am just going through trying to make a decision on, if I should change any of the other colors, and I decided to just skip it for now. I want to launch this as fast as possible. So you can see that it changed the main color. And then I am going to go in and start adding the custom font. And you can see that I uploaded the font and grabbed its location, and now I'm going to add that snippet of code. So that's that snippet of code that I was telling you about that if you really want it, you can tell me in the comments below. I added that code in there for the @font face. And then H1, I only want the H1 or main heading of the site to be rock salt. So that is what I am changing it to. And then I went through again the content just to kind of view it and see what it looked like if I had to do any edits to it. Saving always. And then starting to edit some of that content on the pages. I started off with the home page and adding all of the text. So the text, as I said before, I already had I already had the text, which makes everything go by faster. So make sure to check out the website planning course. I also go through it in my big course, but basically you should really have the images and the text set up and ready, an idea of what content you'll have on your site, so you can just copy and paste it in. I then went into the newsletter and added the text for that. So I already had my newsletter sign up information. Make sure to give something of value. This one really doesn't give anything of value. It's like sign up for my newsletter. That rarely makes an impact with people, but it's what I had for now. And so I set it up having the Squarespace email system be my marketing system for now. And then this section, I decided to delete it, and then deleted any unnecessary sections as well. And some content. So just kind of cleaning things up, making sure that things are set up for me to really hone in on what I wanted to get out of the website. I then went in and added a blog area. Basically, any of the latest blog posts or episodes will be displayed on here, and I want it to go to the actual blog episode area. So just setting up some of the settings and deciding which style would work best. Typically, I already know what style I'm going for because the client has given me a style guide as well as their brand guide. And so I know, hey, they are a masonry or they are really strict on their grid system. So typically I already know that. Right now I'm just kind of winging it. Deleted some unneeded content as well, and kind of looking through the entire place and seeing where else I can tackle things. Here I started adding a section and then decided to remove it. And then here I started adding the actual headline. Make sure that you are utilizing H2s on the rest of the page, H1s or heading 1s on the top of the page, or your main call to action, what you want that page to be about. Then I went over to the footer and I started editing the footer and grabbing images for who is the supporter of the podcast and all that great stuff. So I dragged and dropped some images into the footer and then working with the rest of it to try to really make sure that although it's a very lightweight site, it is still going to function great and make people listen to the actual podcast. So right now I'm just adding some links that I think I'll need on the footer and just kind of fleshing it out, making sure that the footer is being useful, not just kind of a copyright holder. But yeah, so just finishing that up and then again going back through and feeling out the flow of the page, making sure that and referring back to my content. So here I am putting in some of the content that I had created prior to starting this, and kind of just working through that content and where it could land, as well as the hierarchy of what story is it telling when people read through it. Here I added another section. I really wanted an About Us section, or more likely a section that talks about the people who are behind the scenes of the actual podcast. So I added a headline, H2, and then wanted to differentiate that section, so made it gray and started adding images and bios for the people. Here I added the card method and pasted in my own bio for this podcast. And I will be doing the same to the other person who is supporting, who is awesome. And the one thing you will note is that the images I had on file were actually pretty low resolution, especially his. Hopefully I can get his image sent over as fast as possible so that you won't get to see that. But you have to make sure that your images are high enough resolution so that you won't get this blurry effect. They don't have to be super crazy. These were, I think, just like, his was really small. I think my other one was 300 by 300. His was even smaller than that. So you can see how you can never make anything less blurry. It's just gonna get blurrier and blurrier depending on what you do with it. So make sure you have your content and your images first. So here I am uploading another image that I found feels a bit more fun. So that's the one I ended up adding. I changed out the file name, realizing that I hadn't done that before. Make sure to do that before you upload. And his, I will end up switching out anyway. So I thought, you know what, I will hold on his. Because I added our About bios on the homepage, I decided to delete the About pages and contact page and simply add it as a section in this one-page website. You will note though that another snippet of code that I am going to be using is an anchor link or a jump link, and it's basically a link that will take you to a specific area of a page. So I will be adding that in a bit, and right now just really reformatting the contact form, adding in some content, and just kind of making sure everything is looking snazzy, changing out some colors just to see what they look like. And you can see now that I am going to be messing around with the actual links app and the navigation. So that # about and the # contact, you'll have to remember those for that particular code snippet. But again, if you want to see that code snippet, just let me know in the comments below. So going in through it and trying to figure out what other content I can add, as well as adding that code snippet to make things work a little bit better. The first time I added it, I wasn't thinking, and I added a class instead of an ID, but eventually it ended up working anyway once I fixed that little mishap. Here I am just kind of testing out the anchor link and seeing that if it actually pushes down, which it does. And now I'm going to go through and just copy and paste that snippet of code to the sections that I wanted to go into, and just renaming that ID, making sure that I am utilizing the same ID that I will be utilizing for the link up at the navigation. Now I'm going to be optimizing the images. There are some other steps that I typically take, but for time's sake, I may open them up in my own little Mac preview thing and downsize them. This one will be full width. So I made it 1800 pixels wide. I renamed it with just a description of what the image is about. I then looked for it in my crazy downloads folder and I uploaded it. I played around with the overlay opacity to make sure that the text was easy to read. And I changed out the text. And you can see that I tested out the reddish color, but it just didn't read right, so I left it as it was. And then now kind of quickly cleaning up my browser windows, which I still had some hidden somewhere, and really just kind of swapping out images. I uploaded a new image for that square and then went through the entire place and thought, you know what, there's way too much space in between that image and the text. So what I did then is go into design, and well, ideally you go into design and then the image block. So I was using the card style, so if you can see here, and what I did to find that, I just clicked over it and then changed out the percentages so that it wouldn't feel like there was so much space and crazy amount of space throughout. And then kind of just looking through everything, making sure it all looks snazzy. From here, I snagged links for the podcast that I had, and one of the pitfalls that I had for this project was that I didn't know which one to use. I had the Apple podcast link, I had the feed link, and I was trying to figure out if I had to do multiple buttons, and I would just do an RSS feed, but I added the multiple buttons for Audible as well as Apple and Captivate, and you can see me adding the link. And make sure that any links going outside of your site are actually going to open up in a new tab. You don't want them to overtake your site. You want people to really stay on your site. And so I added those buttons on there and then did an overview of the page. I then went into the blog post and started adding a blog post and an article, and snagged some of the information from the feed. So you can see there that I'm grabbing that, copying and pasting that text over. And basically I wanted to have at least one of the something up there in the listen now or the episodes area. So went in there, fixed some of the links, made sure that they were opening in a new window, and yeah, just something like that. Ideally though, you would want to have the transcript or literally like an article summary of the post, of the podcast, and maybe even, if you want to take it one step further, an outline of at what time you started talking about what subject. So, but for time's sake, I just added that and then added the button of where people could hear the actual episode. So that is what I did for this page. Again, ideally you would put in a transcript or an article. You want to catch up, and you want to think about the title of the post, because you want to make sure that it's being useful. It has SEO value, and you want to make sure that it has it tells me what it is. So her name is not going to tell me what the episode is about, so ideally the blog post title will. So I ended up changing that a little bit, but if I could go back, I would likely change it up some more, and I probably will later on. So here I am editing some of the settings for the blog post, and then finally editing that title. Again, I would do a better job on the title going back, and I probably will end up changing it, but for now it was what it was. I hit publish so we can see it, and hit settings and categories. Also, you would likely already have your categories set up if you did some of that pre-work. Your top 5 categories of your blog post, double checking that the URL link is the actual word, not the gobbledygook that sometimes gets placed on there. And then an excerpt, because that is what will be used on the homepage to kind of entice you to really click on the article. And then just finding an image that I already had for her from another podcast, the Digital Hustle Tribe, if you want to go check that out. But I had her headshot, so I thought, why not just use that as the featured image or thumbnail image? And that's what also will populate on the homepage. So now it is published, and I get to go check it. So you can see that I am going to go to the homepage, and you can see it there. So now there's only one, but by the time we fill it up with all of the others, it will look a whole lot better. Right now I added the read more link as well. And then kind of checking over the whole thing just to make sure it's all looking great. From here, I went into the archive page, and you can see that it is a 2-column layout, and it's just a huge layout, huge images. So what I ended up doing was going into its settings and adding more columns, just so that it would not look so overwhelming. And then just editing some of the spacing, taking out that date. I do not like putting dates on my blog posts, simply because if I get busy, which I normally do, and miss a blog post because I was busy with some client project, then I don't want that to be so obvious. Ideally, and it's also not time sensitive, right? So the blog posts that I create, I try to make them evergreen so that there won't be any issue about something being out of date in a week or so. So yeah, I edited some of that, and then went back in to just kind of add the privacy policy. Again, privacy policies, terms and conditions, accessibility statements, you need those on your site. I am not a lawyer, so I don't really know which ones you will need. I absolutely, almost every single one of my clients has a privacy policy though. And so here it was where I was adding in a privacy policy. Keep in mind that a privacy policy is also a kind of a sad page where it doesn't need much work at all. I then went ahead and added the privacy policy link to the footer of the site. This is usually where it is placed because it is the one place that people will look for it. You don't want a privacy policy and then just hide it within your site and expect people to know where it is. They need to be able to read it and link to it. So just playing around with the positioning of the footer now, trying to rearrange everything, making it look a little bit more cohesive than what it looks like right now. Now I am adding the browser icon. Some of us old folks still call it a favicon. At least that's how I learned it, what it was. But it's basically an icon that will show up on the browser. So I typically have like 50 million browser tabs open, and the only way I can tell what is through the icon. So if your site does not have an icon, it'll either have a really weird world icon from Chrome, or it'll have the Squarespace square icon. Cube icon. And now I am just editing the size of the headings because it felt really large, and I am adding a snippet of code for the line height because I thought it needed a little bit more space, not that much space, but just a little bit more space to really be a bit easier to read. From there, I click the subscribe button or the button at the bottom, or you can go to billing, and I chose the plan that I wanted to go with. Typically, I've never had anyone go under personal, but usually the lowest tier is for business, and that's usually what people choose. So I went through that process, as well as made my site live, and I then also made sure that my domain was going to be synced up. The process to connect your domain name was actually pretty simple. I just followed the instructions given by Squarespace to connect Bluehost domain names. I didn't transfer. All I did was almost like forwarding. And you can see that the SSL certificate is still pending, but that's pretty normal as well. And that's basically it. That's it. What did you think? If you have any questions, make sure to put them in the comments. If you want that little snippet of code, let me know as well. Make sure to follow, like, subscribe wherever you're watching us, whether it is Instagram at Robles Design Studio or on YouTube. Make sure to let us know what you think, and if you want to see any more of these videos, or if you have questions in particular about Squarespace. I'm always looking for inspiration on how to on the topics that you want to learn from. So let me know. And again, make sure to check out the freebies at roblesdesigns.com. Check us out on Instagram at Robles Design Studio. And yeah, that's it. I hope to catch you in the next video.